here we are. We've got Oliver Lovley here, one of the SGFA artists, and he's going to show us what he's up to in his studio and talk a bit about the inspiration behind his pieces Faye and Gordon, which are currently in the SGFA Drawing Together online exhibition. So I'm going to hand over to Oliver now and just switch my view. Here we go. Over to you, Oliver.
Thank you, Charlie. Yes, we've got the two pictures here now that are in the online show, and yes, they're sort of nice and lightweight. They're sort of an unusual way to do a paper picture. They were both done actually live at an art show in St Albans while I was standing on my exhibition stand and painting live. There were people coming up to me and speaking to me, but these are both from life drawings, similar to this type of thing. I have all the drawings on the wall on the side of where I work. This is my studio area, but this is sort of taken from my sketchbook, sort of just printed out very roughly on the printer.
So I move it slightly more into the centre, Oliver. So it's more in front of where you are.
Oh, there we go.
That's great. We can see that now.
That's the type of thing that just on printer paper. So I've got reference to paint from, and then I can take all my measurements from the lines that I can draw along. So you can see that grid sort of system. Yeah. It's just a way to transfer what you can see of the figure. You got the classic way of doing like the size of the head, and then you can compare it to everything. But
so do you transfer the grid across as well, or do you just transfer the measurements across? Would you create a grid on your painting before you start?
I usually do that, and I'll usually sight size using one of these, which I thought I'd invented this method, but I was told in a lesson a little while ago. It's sort of like someone said, "Yeah, that's sight sizing." It's like, all right, but so that's a tiny little, when you've only got, because that's life size, that drawing.
Yeah.
When you've only got a tiny little one, hold it up far away from a picture, and in your line of vision, it's very difficult to explain when you can't actually see what's going on through my eye. But if I were to say that size of picture behind there is far away, and that is sort of about the same size as that now, but that's how it is in real life. If I move it about to there, and then you can draw along those lines that I've drawn and mark them off on the sheet of paper, so you can sort of make it bigger in your own field of vision, without having to have a big one of the picture. You can just keep them tiddly, but they've all got bits of.
So what is the bit that's missing from that? The sort of hole in the head on the little sketch. Is that just where it's been attached to the wall, or is that?
Yes, that's where it's ripped with the blue tack I use, because it's just for rough purposes. The original is somewhere in my sketchbooks. In a sort of on a shelf with a load of.
I quite like that. I think it looks deliberate. I wouldn't have known it was the blue tag.
Yeah, that's the sort of freehand drawings in the. Sometimes the little things that you get used to in the studio, like rips of paper and splodges on the wall, that you'd think, oh no one else would be interested in this, but it's those rough edges that give it individuality, I think.
Yeah, definitely.
Same as these are the originals, and it's sort of paper. It's very thick rag paper. It's Two Rivers paper in Somerset.
Right.
What I've done is made it into a kind of canvas, really, and stuck it down with rabbit skin glue onto a sheet of board, sort of framing board.
Is it what sort of board is it that it's on?
It's the kind of backing board you'd use for framing.
Oh right, okay.
The sort of I can't remember the name. It's sometimes called Coricor, but it's the sort of brown acid-free kind of board, so that it will live as long as possible. But the stuff is so thick and robust that you can sort of
you can feel it's really thick paper there.
After the picture's done, I'll try and get the sort of shine of it in the edge of the paper in, but it's so nice to kind of trap it under glue it down, and then I'll varnish it with I played about with different ways of doing the varnish, and I really do like for the ones on paper, to protect it, to kind of be the glass, instead of having to have a glass with the frame. So this piece, because it's on a wooden board, can just be attached into a frame like a canvas. But that means the paper ones they take a little bit longer to prepare like this after the picture's been done. But
so you'd put the paper onto the mount after you've worked on the paper? You wouldn't stretch the paper first and then work on it?
Afterwards, yes. Okay. And depending, I mean, I've not done this yet with an oil painting, just because the oil ones would have to dry for 6 months before you put any varnish on. But because this was acrylic, it was dry in the evaporation time. And also I was using acrylic at the live show at Chiddickbury Arts Fair in St Albans it was. But that was for convenience, and so I could transport them easily, because once they're dry, they're totally dry with acrylic.
And it almost looks like ink, doesn't it?
It's kind of a mixture of water. It's thinned down acrylic in the background, and what I'll be always interested in is, I'll show you the other one as well. Hold the Fay up. I'll be interested in having different textures on the sheet that you can see when you go in really close. Hopefully it's capturing.
If you angle it up a little bit, so sort of like, so it's a bit flatter towards the screen again, so other way as well,
like that.
And then up the other way. So you bring it like Oh, that's brilliant. Yeah, no.
Really irritating.
It's a bit strange trying to sort of direct you.
No,
that's great. You can really see the texture in there, and all the like modeling in the little bits of is it, I don't know quite what it is, like where there's extra pigmentation, where they've got trapped in the water, or I'm not
where
sure.
It can, sometimes it's kind of like the paint mixture I'll be using, very, very much thinned down, and then the very wet sheet with that mixture being allowed to run down, so it stains in places and sort of creates a kind of wash in others. But all of these, you can see where, hopefully you can see the line that I transferred for the site sizing process.
And then this nice bleed here.
All of these sort of sections were kind of created when I did the site sizing, so they appear as I draw the lines, really, like a stained glass window.
So you've got beautiful, like the geometry of all the lines going through, and then these really organic merges of the colours.
You can have difference in sort of contrast in texture, or a contrast in hard lines and free flowing lines, and that is going to give you visual excitement each time. I think it certainly gives me, and it's that combination that you see in real life, where you can actually discern what is made by machine and what's made by nature. And if you've got one next to the other, it's just a way to explain what's going on and what you can see, really, or translate it. But there are sort of rules that come along with that. If I do the very thick paint for, try and move the camera, for the skin, say, that's thick acrylic without very much water in it at all. Now that needs to be, if that's going to be the flesh of the person, there can't be that anywhere else unless there is another person. So that is very clearly human flesh, and that's not, just so that you're explaining very clearly.
So when you're choosing the colours, would you pick a palette and think this is just going to be used on the figure and these are going to be for the background, or would you think of the flesh colours and sort of bring those in somewhere? If
it's something like these drawings, then they are all done in, if they're all done in pencil, then it's kind of down to my mood on the day, really. And if I usually tend to start off with this very thick texture paste. It's sort of like built up. I'll just hold the jar up. But that's just like it can dry a lot thicker and stays harder. So it's more like doing a sculpture, really, on a sort of low relief sculpture out of it. That will dry harder, and you can sand it once it's dry. Then that's the sculpture part of it. That's the sort of the living part, and then everything else around it is where the living part inhabits. So each one works with the other and in contrast to each other. So they can have it, so it's not just a sort of floating figure. It's the environment presses in on the figure and forces it to behave in a certain way, really. But that process isn't really planned every time, and it does depend on the type of marks I've made in the drawing. And those drawings are the most sort of organic process. They're the start of the process, really, because I'll draw everything in sketchbooks and have things like these sort of as very quick observations sometimes. Oh, cool. And that was two people sitting in a local pub.
Yeah.
I've done sort of paintings of all these, and it's been really nice. So that's been a good thing over the last over in 2020. It's been getting these drawings to be very much the start of my paintings, because it was kind of not quite as strict as that as a plan, really. But it's been wonderful to get the life drawings, all these life drawings that I've been doing over weekly classes, really running a life class. Built up quite a lot of drawings that I wanted to make another version of, in a way, as a painting.
So would you always normally be working from drawings, or is this something that you've been working from drawings a lot more because of COVID and the lockdown and not being able to go to the live painting sessions?
I think it was I was thinking of drawing as the skill I needed to keep rehearsed to do the paintings, and the paintings would appear would be sort of down to my choice of reference material, and that was always what the process of doing a painting was. You gather your reference material, and then sort of, and that can be your own drawings or photos, or your own face in the mirror, say. I've got sort of mirrors up here for doing faces, and there's a portrait on the go under there.
Is that a self-portrait?
Yes, this one I've done online on the on my fine art. It's Oliver Lovley Fine Art on Facebook, but I do the live painting on there every now and again. Sort of.
Is it the same size as your mirror? It sort of looks. It might be a trick of the camera, but it looks
much,
as if it's almost the same size.
Much. That's quite a sort of dinky little portrait, and the mirror. It's just helpful to have. I don't always worry about getting a likeness really, but it's I can make someone else up if I look in the mirror, and I can sort of move my face about and sort of like if I need an eye, it's kind of like I need to make it sort of look different, so I can look at the different parts of my face and elongate some parts and move it up and then draw it in that way. So it's quite, but I definitely need something to draw from. I don't have the information in my mind, and if I try to rely totally on imagination, then that means it will just be a lot less interesting. I can work, once I've got something down, I can use imagination to carry on from that. But it's like with improvisation, when you're acting, I think you need or doing music, you can't just go in and sort of start. You have to have a kind of baseline from which to improvise from, otherwise it's chaos. There's got to be a kind of improvised quality. There's got to be a sort of controlled quality to the chaos.
Yeah.
Like little bits of chaos that I need to keep in tight control, but then I know when I can sort of let things go and let things just drift down.
With your I mean, your background is slightly unusual in that you're doing the acting as well, and you've got the music as well, so you're very, very creative, not just in the visual art.
Yeah, it's been just lately, it's been more the music. I've done some amateur dramatics, but I sort of saw that as it was rehearsal for doing the music in a way, but the amateur dramatics I just couldn't cope with the amount of time it takes up, really, because you sort of live with a play for 3 months or longer, really, and that is virtually all you have time. You've got space for in your brain, and it's kind of like, do you want to do painting, or do you want to do painting and music when you can, or do you want to be in a play? And that was the very stark choice that it seemed to be to me.
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing that you've been able to fit so much in, but I suppose at some point it does come to a head a bit, and you.
Yeah, well, my music is a kind of one person sort of band, one man band, so I can do it as and when I want to, and it's done on the computer with me singing, and I don't have to phone up anybody for band practice or make sure that I'm keeping the politics of the band happy or something. It's just when I want to do it.
Yeah, it's a lot easier to fit in, because if at 2 a.m. you decide you're going to go and make your music, there's nobody to have to wake up and get to come
That's
and
right.
join you. Yeah,
Yes, yeah.
brilliant.
There's a lot of similar sorts of processes to music, and I'll tend to have music on while I'm painting. It's a nice thing to, because you can sort of find visual metaphors for the way the music's flowing around.
And do you tend to have other people's music on, or would you ever listen to your own music while you're creating your own pictures?
But sometimes I'll be sort of rehearsing in a way. I'll be singing while I'm painting, but that's not always very possible because it's a bit. I'll start singing and then I can't remember the words because I'm concentrating on this, thinking verbally, and then trying to think of marks to make. It's kind of like you're trying to do both at the same time and not doing either very well.
Yeah.
So it's better to listen to instrumental stuff, and I like listening to film soundtracks a lot while I'm painting, and particularly sort of synthesized soundtracks, where it's something like Terminator 2 soundtrack, or Ennio Morricone. I like.
Oh, that's interesting. A lot of artists have said that. There's a lot of soundtrack enthusiasts out there.
Right.
I listen to quite a lot of film soundtracks as well.
Yeah. The newer Blade Runner film, the Blade Runner 2049, I think it's called. It's Jan Hammer music to that, and that's wonderful. I've been listening to that quite a lot lately.
Oh,
but
brilliant.
it's really simple, pretty harsh sound. It's quite industrial sounding, but the sounds go with the marks that I want to make. So you've got a kind of rough sort of chunk to make in paint, and then it's a kind of distorted, choking sound that's coming out of the speakers.
So, what have you got lined up over the next few months, Oliver?
Well, it was just before all the lockdown and everything. I was in touch with a few different galleries, and it was kind of imminently exhibiting with several, and I managed to get some work to the Cupola Gallery in Sheffield. So they've got some of mine when they're able to reopen. But there's
are you in Under the Bed Sale as well, or in one of the shows?
Yes, I've got. I think it's just a big pile of 40 older pictures in the Under the Bed Sale.
Oh, so if anyone wants a bargain, Under the Bed Sale at Cupola Gallery coming up in April.
That's right, and they've also got. I think it's about 7 of my framed pictures of the newer ones. There's a kind of lighter in colour on board, and yes, stuff with Gallery 6 in Newark.
Mm-hmm.
Newark, France. They've got about 7 of mine at the moment as well.
Are they also figure studies, or are they?
It's a mixture, really. Yes, it's kind of trees and figures, and they. Yes, I'm just trying to. With the galleries, I sort of swap pictures around so much. I have to go back to my folder and check the delivery note to see exactly what they have now, because I'll move them around. But there's also the Lakeside Arts Centre at Nottingham University, which is really quite close to where I live.
Oh, brilliant.
They have expressed an interest to have my work in the gallery and they'd already said probably be about 2022, and then it'll probably be now 2023 because of the backlog of the work. But I've been assured that they would like to exhibit my work. So
Oh, brilliant. Exciting things coming up. Lots of
yes, I've got a nice long time to do the pictures for that, or to do a few more but in the Wellner Gallery, in the kind of lakeside building, which I've wanted to do that for quite a while. I was in the exhibition they had. It would have been the end of 2019. The auction, contemporary art auction, and I had a single tree painting, that the big one, and that was a really nice experience. Yes, very.
Super, that's great. Well, thank you so much for sharing a bit more about the pieces you've got into drawing online and telling us what you've been up to and what you're going to be doing over the next few months. It all sounds really exciting.
Good.
So thanks very much, Oliver, and I hope you have a fantastic rest of the day.
Thank you. And you?
Thank you.